Good morning, my students. This is me, Dr. Hani Alhasani, and that's the course of Semantics for senior students in English department at Isra University. Today we are in a session, and this session it will be definitely and absolutely to talk about modality. So modality, it's very important part of linguistics, especially in semantics. And when we talk about modality, we have to understand some kind of or some points. First of all, the term modality refers to a semantic category which expresses the attitude of the speaker towards the state of affairs expressed in the sentence. In this wider sense, modality can be expressed through a variety of formal and lexical means, such as morphological mood of the verb, whether the verb is indicative, subjunctive, or the sentence adverbials can be included with maybe, perhaps, possibly, and necessarily. And also we can talk about modal auxiliaries like can, may, must, should, and syntactic means. So we are here to share something related to expresses the attitude of the speaker, and this attitude can be used through the word maybe, perhaps, and possibly, necessarily. That's the word belong to adverb or adverbial sentences, and the modal auxiliaries may, can, could, shall, should, and must. Here what we can say it as a modality or under the modality. In the book here we can find possibility and necessity. It's directly started with defining modality as category of linguistic meaning having to do with expression of possibility and necessity. So in general, if we ask you about what do we mean by modality in the science of semantics, you need to understand the science of semantics define the modality as category of linguistic meaning. So it deals with semantics having to do with expression of possibility and necessity. So when we talk about necessity, we need to understand the words that belong to necessity. Usually we can use must or can or could, and others like in modal verbs. And here you can see the modal auxiliary is existed here, and whatever synonym that belong to must. That's how to talk about modality. But the next part that we need to define is the necessity and possibility, which is like include the information that the basic proposition it contains is necessarily or possibly true. So we are talking about the level of true. By what? The consequence of possibly true is necessarily true proposition is one which is true in any circumstances. So you cannot tell this level of true can be false. Possibly true, so we have possibly true and necessarily true. So possibly true, we can think about the level of being false, so we can consider it at the end of the day by finding the fact it is not necessarily to be false. That's the difference between necessity and possibility. So possibility, there is a level of finding it true, even others they will say it's false, and if it is false there is a level to be is not false, or it's not under a level of being false. But for necessity, if they say it's true, you cannot say it's false, so it's totally true. That's the level of necessity. And usually like what we need to talk here is also to share something about logical modality, and with logical modality we think about the sentence requirements. What are the requirements for the sentence? Any requirements for the sentence could be related to logic. So we are asking ourselves when we hear any sentence, this sentence it looks like logical one, we can observe it or we can think about it normally without any doubt, or we need to rethink it or rethink about it twice or maybe triple times before we believe it. And here, while a sentence like, for example, Napoleon might have won at Waterloo, that illustrates the logical possibility. So the logical possibility, when we talk about logical possibility, because we say might have won, by the word of might we can think about possibility. But if the sentence like diameter of a circle passes through the center of the circle, that's what we call logical necessity, because we understand the full sentence without any doubt. There is no possibility in auxiliary verbs that could carry a meaning of double thinking or kind of uncertainty. So here the range of modal meaning, strength vs type of modality. And here we have Arthur must or has to be home by now, and Arthur should be home by now. Arthur might be home by now. So the three levels we have. The first one, we can think that A, it's totally the level of necessity and the level of certainty. We are sure that Arthur at the moment or now is already home. But the second one, Arthur should be home by now, that's a sentence that include the highest or the higher level of possibility. It means we are quite certain. And the last one, we have the doubt. Maybe there is no one in the home, and we expect that Arthur could or might reach the home by now. So if we need to define something from the beginning, and we need it for sure, we have what we call the epistemic and deontic. So if you check here in the second page, we have in other words, there are several different ways to say the possible true. The two types that we need to focus on, epistemic vs deontic. So the full chapter it divided the structure of sentences based on the level of modality. We have to think about two types. The first we say epistemic, which is here. The second is deontic. So if we need to define the first one, epistemic, so we have here the word epistemic. The epistemic or modality, it expresses the necessity or possibility of a proposition being true. So when we talk about epistemic, it's usually we are quite sure about what are we telling to, or what are we informing others about, and that's being true given what is already known. I have known that the sun rises from the east, so nobody can be doubt. And I have known that, let's say, I have graduated in 2010, so nobody can be doubt. If he knew me surely and closely, he will not say anything against my sentence. If I say I have graduated in 2010, no one around me will tell, oh, there is something wrong, because I'm saying something logical and it's epistemic. Everybody is, or everyone who surrounded me will not deny or will not stand against me, or will not be in counterpart to tell me that it's not true. And that's the epistemic modality. The level of true is there, and in other words, we can say it refers to the conclusion drawn by actual evidence about a range of possibility. And therefore, the sentence, like if we want to see the sentence, like here we have, John didn't show up for work, he must be sick. So he is a co-worker. So the spoken here who said that he must be sick, usually epistemic. Why? Because he knew him. he knew him. John didn't show up for work, he must be sick. So I am his friend and I'm telling others he didn't come to work because he for sure and I can guarantee that he is sick. So that's level of epistemic because I could recognize how or to what extent he can be absent or in what conditions or cases he could be absent. Here we have number B or B. John didn't show up for work. He must be fired. So that's called deontic. Why? Because we can expect it as spoken by boss. So boss mention something, and this thing which called deontic. Deontic means what here? Deontic that we can adhere it to some code of behavior or set of rules. So when we have a kind of rules that controlled or mentioned in the sentence or something related to bad conduct, good conduct, we say it's deontic, and here it informed by his boss. So his boss say he's fired, it means he already left and they kicked him out. And deontic necessity here, when we talk about deontic necessity, we need to understand it expresses what is required or what someone is obliged to do. So, maybe the boss here, he obliged to kick him out of the work, and that's why he said the boss he said he must be fired. And we have also deontic possibility. We can understand it by what? By expresses what is allowed or permitted. Like when you say John is allowed to drive the tractor or is allowed to come for work. So here you are giving the permission and you try to express the allowance or the how you allow someone and how you give the permission for others. That's what we call deontic possibility. There is possible level to be in the job, but deontic necessity, like what happened here, like he's fired by somehow, and you can see here the description about the permission. So are models polysemous? Here we need to understand example 2 and 3 illustrate another important fact that in many languages one single sentence can also give other meanings. Like here if we check number 3, the older students may leave school early unless the teachers watch them carefully. Usually some students who are old, they prefer to leave so early, and the other sentence, the older students may leave school early, it has also if they inform the headmaster first. So we read the sentence and we put two expectations. The first one we put unless the teachers watch them carefully. It means they could leave, yes, but in the same time they are leaving under the like maybe less observation of teachers. If the teachers are aware, they will not leave. And the second part here, they say that they took permission by leaving. They couldn't leave without the headmaster or the principal of the school. That surely happened in that sentence. Fine. Like here we can understand how many expectations we could put for the sentence based on epistemic or deontic. Again, epistemic or deontic. Okay, so the case that we are also looking for, we have other example. We have an example that's called term, which is root modality is often used as a cover term for non-epistemic. Why do we mention here non-epistemic? We carry the sentence, it has to be raining. So it has to be raining after observing people coming inside with wet umbrellas. So here epistemic, why we mention this epistemic modality? Because I could see the necessity of something, I find out that those people already from my sense, I find them wet, and that's why I say it has to be raining. So my expectation here, after I find the wet umbrellas, they came from rainy weather, and that's what we call it is epistemic. We have here visitors have to leave by 6 p.m. That's what we call deontic because it has, as we say, rules or regulation. So if we talk about rules, regulation, or conduct, or behavior, all of them under the deontic. But if we talk about something well known or could be expected or I have knowledge about it, that will be listed under epistemic. And here we have C. We can recognize something for C which is related to the politics. So here we have one kind of the modality which called politic, and politic can be paraphrased as hope or desired, feared, regretted. Why? Because here you are trying to desire, you are trying to hope, you are trying maybe to feel fear, and for politic it's include want, like the meaning of want, I need or I want. And for this type of politic, it's what we call in politic, we can understand it is kind of similar to deontic modality, which is aspires to influence the world, the whole world. And here we can read the example. And this example, John has to work hard if he wants to retire at age 50. So I hope the meaning here for why we define it as a part of politic, and the politic modality we say is quite closer to deontic, but here we need to understand that politic it's usually about hoping or desiring or I regret. So when you say it's something related to regression or fear, desire, and hope, we link it to politic. It's not about knowledge and it's not about the rules, but it's about what you hope or what you are already regretting for. John has to work hard if he wants to retire at age 50. So I hope that I could retire at 50 because I need to rest early. I don't want to keep working until 50. It looks like long years. We have here, I have to sneeze. So given the current state of one nose, and here that's dynamic. What we call it, the modality here is dynamic. Why? Because I'm talking about something existed at the moment. If I say I have to sneeze, I have to, or I am coughing, here it's dynamic because it happened right away. And last we have the what we call here the word of what you can read it, to get home in time you have to take a taxi. So you read this sentence, and after you read the sentence you will ask yourself, what do you understand about this sentence? So you can read the description, and you can find in order to achieve the stated purpose. So when you want to achieve something, you can use teleological by using the word tele. It's you tell others or you inform others that you relate or involve the explanation of phenomena in terms of purpose they serve rather than of the cause. So here, if I'm talking about teleological meaning, we are trying to share the achieving stated purpose. So the achieving stated purpose here, it kind of teleological. To get home in time, you have to take a taxi. So we use the logic, nothing more, nothing less. So this sentence, to get home in time, you have to. This is the modality, have to. It's under modal auxiliary verbs. You have to take a taxi. It looks like a normal sentence, but at the same time we find it gives you how to achieve one goal. So you are trying to achieve one goal. What's the difference between E and C? In C you are desiring and hoping, as we mentioned, but in E we are trying to accomplish one kind of target. You need to reach home early or in time. You need to have or to take a taxi. That's very common and it's simple. That's how we can define the root of modality. We have one type epistemic, the second type deontic, the third type politic, and the fourth type dynamic, the last one teleological. And here we could recognize the sentences based on semantics or semantics modality science. You know, like when you learn something about modality linguistics, you can read as much as you can and as much examples as you can because it's a wide area. A lot of students around the world who are doing their masters, they are trying to link themselves to this topic. Why? Because it has a lot of issue to work and a lot of explanations. You have the sentences, and from these sentences you can widen your knowledge, and you can be somehow an analyzer. You analyze sentences. In here we have, you can receive root or circumstantial interpretation about some words. You can read by yourself because we are not focusing on it here. We have here I should go to confession but I'm not going to. I must go to confession but I'm not going to. What's the difference between the two sentences? You can find the difference in what you can. So when we read example number 7, we can understand it's about deontic. So deontic, why deontic? I should go to confession but I'm not going to. I must go to confession but I'm not going to. Deontic here because it's about something obliged. Obliged, like you have to do it. It's under the regulation, under the rules. I must go to confession but I'm not going to. And here I should go to confession. In 8, Arthur should be home by now, but he doesn't have to be. And here it looks like epistemic because we know that he should be there. In the same time, it doesn't matter if he didn't come. Arthur has to be home by now, but he might not be. That's what we call bad on epistemic reading. Number 9. Arthur has to be home by now, but I consider it unlikely. No need to think too much about these sentences, but what we need to think about whether this sentence is epistemic model or kind of deontic. So we move to 10. Here we have epistemic model strength. The strength here when we use must. So must and have to, it's necessity. Should and ought to, it's half or 50-50. May, might, could, it's about possibility. And deontic for obligation, when we talk about must and have to for the highest level, should, ought to in the mid, and the least part or the little part, may, might, and could for permission. That's how we are trying here to share with you something about modality. We say in grammar we have modal verbs, and we talk a lot about the level of modal verbs, but here we are trying to share something new. which is, as we mentioned, epistemic and deontic, and we here need to understand epistemic is what I know about the actual world, and deontic what the relevant authority requires. That's how you need to give the feedback to any sentence based on the knowledge or based on the behavior. So with behavior, we say that it's deontic, or with rules and authority with deontic. For the knowledge, it's about epistemic. Okay, well, we have here in the next page, we have 21 example. The state may confiscate Arthur's asset. So that's called deontic because it needs rules, it needs regulation. And for sure, how we could recognize it by the word confiscate. Confiscate is a very strong word that belongs to law. That's how we understand it. We have here one scientist, his name Kratzer, and he addressed the problem of restriction for possibility. We don't need to talk too much about Kratzer, but we have to understand the examples. Like here we have Arthur must go to prison. This is deontic. So someone in law, he is too sure about the law and the regulation. If he is too sure, we can say it's deontic. And we have here another example down. We can see Arthur must be at home. This is epistemic because it's about knowledge. So we are repeating the example somehow from here and there. In the same time, we can reach the level of understanding by the examples in the page 200, I think, 200 or 304. So 304, we have epistemic. When we read this sentence, John must, or maybe the murderer, maybe we know here something, and John may watch TV, but he must go to bed at 8. This is deontic, maybe because the word that orders by parents, there is a regulation by parents, put it to him. We have here ability. John can lift 200 maybe pound. Or theological, we have here John must write a dissertation. So he is studying a PhD, and at the end of his stage he should write a dissertation. Politic, John should work hard now because he wants, or he has hope, or he desired to retire at age of 50. So in total we can find out kind of different examples, but what I'm trying to tell you, read more and more. We have here last example in page, or in the next page, example 30. In example 30 we can read Henry must be in Brussels this week. It can be epistemic and can be deontic. Why? Because here if I give you this sentence and if you are his friend, you will say he must be in Brussels because you know. But if I say Henry must be in Brussels this week, that's because maybe there is an order and he should oblige to it, and can be deontic. Henry must write a book this year. It's a future, but it's only deontic. Why? Because I say still in the future, and the future couldn't be control on knowledge, or there is no acknowledgement to say it's about epistemic, but I can say there is an order, and where is an order or a rule, it should follow by deontic. Henry must be writing a book this year, so that's only an epistemic. Why? Because I open the possibility for it and the possibility for knowledge, so I could know, or I could feel that he will be writing the book this year. You can read these examples and find out how we can differentiate between two types. In the exam for sure we will bring to you some sentences or two sentences. I will ask you what is epistemic or epistemic and what is deontic. That's how we add a new knowledge to you in level of semantic or modality linguistics, modality linguistics, and in semantic sciences. Thank you very much for listening to me, and for sure the chapter is not ended yet, but what is there, you can read the conclusion overall and find any question that already raises your perplexing level, and if you feel confused, please raise your hand, or you can write me back an e-learning platform to share the answers. Thank you very much for listening, and see you later.